Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Hopefully, this finds everybody in good health and good spirits, and hopefully, you're off to a great start to your day. For all those that got a chance to listen to episode 4, my interview with Roman Robinson on the Airmike'S podcast, thank you. Thank you for taking the time out. Have got some great feedback. People have hit me up and said that they've seen the website and they were intrigued with, what he's doing. So, I appreciate that. I thought that went very well. But for episode 5 today, we'll be talking about current events. I'm sure everyone is aware of the things that took place in Las Vegas with the mass shooting, with the current wildfires that are going on in Northern California, all coming right after the hurricanes hit Houston, Puerto Rico, Florida, St. Thomas, amongst other places. And while all these tragedies have taken place, people are being forced to become more conscious of what's going on in the world at large around them, which that in itself is not a bad thing. So today I'll be touching on the current state of the world and how it relates to the past. So tune in and let's get right to it. So, as I mentioned, we're in the middle of some trying times right now. So much going on in the world. Many people feel as though the last days are among us. They feel that the end is near. And although we're witnessing a lot of chaos, let us not forget what's happened in our past, in the history of humankind. For starters, I'll mention the Black Plague, the Black Death. One of the most devastating times in human history. An estimated 75 to 200 million people in Europe died to the disease. A disease that started in Asia, spread throughout Europe in places like Italy, France, and Spain, and different places along the Mediterranean, and was estimated to have killed 30 to 60% of Europe's total population in almost just over a 4-year span. The world population didn't recover to the same levels until almost 300 years later. I guarantee you, in those times, people believed that they were in the midst of the last days, and they were sure that the world was coming to an end. That being one example. Another example, even the Mayan civilization coming to an end. It's still unknown what happened to the civilization as a whole. They spread throughout modern-day Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, and one by one, the classic cities began to become abandoned until finally the civilization in those regions completely collapsed. And people still don't know, what happened to them. It's a mystery to their disappearance. And I'll bet in those days, they thought the world was coming to an end. Or, maybe they did it because they were so advanced spiritually that they knew exactly what was happening. The same could go for the Egyptians and many other cultures throughout history. So the point that I'm trying to make is we shouldn't be so quick to rush to judgment about things like the last days because we're experiencing our own tragedies and our own chaos. Now, I will say this. We as humans are the cause of many of the tragedies that happen to us. Natural disasters happen, and even those who believe in global warming, can't deny that fact, that natural disasters do happen. But when we look deeper into things like genocide, which is the deliberate killing of people who belong to a particular racial, political, or cultural group, it's easy to see that we are the ones determining, human fate, or at least we're attempting to determine human fate. I became curious as to how something like genocide even comes about, so I began to do research on it. And of course, genocide is not only something that happened in the past. You think genocide, you think of Adolf Hitler and what happened in Germany. It's something that's still going on today, right now, as you listen to this podcast. In Syria, in Yemen, in Sudan, in the Congo, in Burma. People who are uninformed will initially think, oh, well, all those people in Syria or Yemen, in Congo, they're savages, or they're all terrorists, and they don't have a democracy, so they really got everything that's coming. When in each and every single country I just named, there is an oppressor, and then there's those who are being oppressed and are victims to not only an unjust government, but a highly violent and one who kills thousands of people on end. In Syria, for example, 500,000 people have died since 2011, and the majority of the civilians that have been killed by barrel bombs and chemical weapons that target the hospitals and the school, on top of all the other mass execution. In Yemen right now, 85% of the country are in need of humanitarian aid. It's the world's single largest humanitarian crisis right now on Earth. The U.S. State Department, they approved the sale of $1.3 billion worth of air-to-ground weapons, so bombs, to Saudi Arabia, who is battling Yemen, to replenish their RSAF, which is the Royal Saudi Air Force, which included, like I said, 22,000 bombs. Congress then was notified because under the Arms Trade Treaty, states are not allowed to sell weapons to a party engaged in armed conflict if it knows the arms could be used as a direct attack to civilians. So it's kind of easy to see why there's so much animosity towards America from all these different countries when you look at it from the perspective that we're enabling other countries to completely destroy countries that they're fighting with when we are a third party. So you always have to kind of wonder, what is our vested interest in, the situation. So here we have all these lives that are lost, all this tragedy, modern day genocide right in front of us. And like I said, I became curious to how and why something like genocide even comes about. So here's a few reasons that I've come together. The government or the people who are in power, they want full control and want a specific race, want a specific culture, which then leads to hatred amongst those that they are against, which leads to anger as well, hatred and anger. They then begin to spread lies, and they build up that fear amongst the people who are following them, the people that are listening to them, and they start to manipulate them through different propaganda, deliberate lies that are told on media, different media campaigns, painting the oppressed to be rebels, to be terrorists, to be found as though they are highly dangerous because they don't share the same beliefs. And with the weapons that the government has, once they have enough followers, they then give people an ultimatum, which is simply, you're either with us or you're against us, which then leads people to dehumanization, dehumanizing others, to basically look down on people that they once called their neighbors. And when you begin to dehumanize someone, the people begin to look at someone of a different race, of a different religion as subhuman. They begin to look at them as inferior, and which then leads to that emptiness, because without that feeling of them being a human, there's emptiness for how they're feeling, which leads to no feeling of guilt. You kind of take that out because you're making it seem like they are beneath you. And a study has shown that 1 in every 25 people is a sociopath. A sociopath being someone who behaves in a dangerous or violent way towards others and does not feel any guilt about their behaviors, which also relates to a psychopath, a person who is mentally ill, who does not care about other people, and they're usually very dangerous or very violent. So by definition, if we look at some of the people that we see on TV, or if we look at some of the people around us or elected officials, we tend to see some of these different traits and these characteristics match. We must always remember that not every person with a mental illness, mental disease is diagnosed by a doctor as having such. And in fact, most people aren't. So then we must begin to go off people's actions. And we must become mindful when we start to notice these red flags, which means also we must not allow our emotions to cloud our logic or to cloud our judgment of character. People of faith often recite how we shouldn't cast judgment because we too will be judged, which is very understandable because, nobody is perfect. But in reality, we judge every day. And I'm not talking about oh man, look at those shoes he got on, man, those are weak. Or from a female standpoint, wow, she's not pretty, or she's not very pretty at all. Why is he with her? I'm not talking about those judgments of character. I'm talking about the judgment of morals, the judgment of our inner character, who we surround ourselves with, who we feel uncomfortable around, people that we're skeptical about. We constantly judge for one of two reasons. Either one, because we have low self-esteem and we want to make ourselves feel better by putting others down, or two, because we're looking out and we're worried about our own safety and well-being. So my best advice would be, if you're going to judge only the character of a person. All the materialistic and all the physical things, those types of judgments are only a reflection of the different things that you feel inside that you yourself are lacking. I bring up and going back to genocide, I bring up all these other countries that are now in the midst of a civil war to remind all those listening that if we allow our views to be shaped by news, to be shaped by media, to be shaped by lies, it's not only creating more division amongst us, it is also, we'll find ourselves no different than Syria, no different than Yemen. We still must not allow all the chaos that's going on in the world to distract us. We must not fall victim to the different propaganda and start to believe these lies, because what is it that you see when you turn on the news? Every channel, the NFL anthem protest. Every channel you turn to, that's all you see now. And you have to ask yourself this. Why is this topic getting so much recognition? When you really think about it, you'll come to find that it's doing exactly what propaganda wants it to be doing, which is creating that division. It's a classic case of divide and conquer. You create that division, you create that fear amongst a certain group of people, and now you're starting to see this different traits that I listed about how genocide comes about. I'm not saying, we'll ultimately get to the worst point of a genocide, but the way that civil wars work, and the hatred and the anger and the fear and the ignorance, the way that all those things works, I'm starting to see a trend of that with what's going on right now, even just in the NFL anthem protest as a minor example. So that's kind of food for thought, something that you should think about. So seek for the truth. Be more understanding. It's okay to step back and say, you know what, I was wrong. Or even to admit that you've been wrong or closed-minded for years now. But what we should not do is allow our pride and our emotions to cloud our judgment, as I said. I really hope that you can take something away from this. And I hope that I hope that, like I said, it makes you more open-minded, and I hope it leaves you with wanting to seek more knowledge. In the midst of all the lies and all the false headlines that we see, the truth is somewhere waiting just to be revealed. So I encourage all of you to be seekers of the truth, if you will. So until next time, don't forget to live in the now. Never forget to live in the now, and always be mindful of that which is going on around you, because we look at ourselves, and with the natural fire, the wildfires coming to California, and devastating so many homes, so much area, you kind of see these things on TV, but then once it hits home, it's a whole new feeling. It's more real. You realize that it's only a matter of days, a matter of hours, a matter of seconds before your life can completely change. But when you live life mindful of these things, it makes you more appreciative of every day that you have here on this earth, and it makes you more appreciative for the small things. So like I said, don't forget to live in the now, and I'll see you next time on the Airmike Podcast. Thank you.
Hey, I'm just plotting on the come up. Woke up when the sun up. Slowing down for no one. Ain't nobody will run up. I'm plotting on the come up. Woke up when the sun up. Slowing down for no one. Ain't nobody will run up. I've been plotting on the come up. I've been plotting on the come up. Yeah. I've been on the, yeah. I've been plotting on the come up. Hey. Not slowing down, ain't no one around me, I'm out here like all alone. Going down is a bad direction, I can't go that way no more. Holding down,